there was this light, this sparkle. It is, again, there's no words to describe these because it's so much bigger than what we are and what human experience is allowing us to understand at this point. It's like I don't really have the words to, to describe it better than it is just your light. You are like such a sparkling, incredible being, every single one of us. And that is like one of the biggest messages I want everybody to hear, that you are magnificent. Don't let your brain lie to you. You are magnificent.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You know, the tagline on my YouTube channel is called Waking You Up to the Power of Your Soul. That is what this whole channel is about. You summed it up so beautifully. I'm so glad you're sharing this. So let's go back a little bit and let's talk a little bit about something that you mentioned that I've heard other people say before, and that was that you realize that you've lived through this and it's part of the plan. So how in the world, why in the world would someone have picked an abusive relationship as part of their plan?
Well, first of all,
my guest today is Ulla Gaudin, who had a near-death experience when she was 21. And you guys, if you are someone who has been wondering and questioning, do we really plan these lives in advance? Because why would somebody pick a negative situation like abuse? Today is the day that you want to watch, because Ulla is going to share what she believes has happened to her with her situation. So Ulla, welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
thank you so much, Laurie. I'm really excited to be here. And I actually just have to do a quick little correction. I was 23 when I had my
Okay.
experience. I was 21 when I was diagnosed with stomach cancer.
Okay, that's what I'm remembering. Well,
Yes.
and since you're mentioning the stomach cancer, we'll get into this in a little bit. But you know, when I was listening to your near-death experience, you reminded me a little bit of Anita Moorjani's.
I did. I love that
Yes.
because I love her.
Yes. Because she too, like you, had cancer,
Mhm.
and on the other side realized that it was because of that lack of self-love that caused you to hold these things in these areas and manifest into a cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That I love to hear that because I love Anita Moorjani.
me
I love
too.
her story.
Me too. I got to meet her last year at IANDS. I met her at a workshop in Sedona many years ago, but I got to talk to her for a few minutes at IANDS, which is really cool.
I love it. I love it. I love her energy.
She's great. But I love your energy too,
Oh,
and you
thank you.
have such a great story. So why don't you start by sharing what your life was like before you had this near-death experience at 23?
So I grew up in Finland, and the Finnish culture is very different from what we experience here in US. I've been in the United States for 25 years now, and I grew up thinking that I am not worthy of love because of the shape of my body. Like, how insane is that? But that's what I grew up with. I was constantly told that my hips are too big and my butt's too big. And it's when you think about 70s, 80s, and 90s, yes, so the women wear stick figures, especially in the 70s when I was a little child. They wear like these really skinny, straight body women, and that was what was perfect body back then. So I was told constantly that I am not worthy of love because of this. And there's a lot of other things too. Growing up in a household where my parents divorced and us children were put in the middle of that. Of course, that affects you as a child too. But what really stuck with me and not being worthy of love was the shape of my body. I really truly believe that. And when I went to high school, all of a sudden everybody's got a boyfriend, and everybody, all the guy friends, they had girlfriends, and I don't have anybody. And I believed to the core of me that I am not worthy of anybody because of the shape of my body. And then I finally met someone. I was 16 years old and I was in love because this guy didn't push me away. And that was the criteria for me, good enough that, okay, I'm going to hold on to this person for a really, like, so tightly that he'll know that I really love him, and I'm worthy of love.
I'm
And
so glad you're sharing this because I know that there are people watching right now that are in this situation or have been in this situation and can completely relate to what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. And I think that, to me, that part of my story has always been the most important for me to share, because as I've been doing these interviews, there's been so much wonderful feedback. I love all the comments that I've heard about how it's held, but I've also heard a lot of negative comments where it was like, well, why didn't you just feel better, or why didn't you just leave, and things like that. And unless you are in the situation where your self-esteem was never a built, or it was shattered by different life events, you don't know what it is to be in that situation.
Yeah.
And for me, it turned into a nightmare. It was not very long after our first date that my boyfriend beat me for the first time. And I thought it was me. It was something I did. It was something in me because I wasn't worthy of love because I have a big butt. And I want to say it in a humorous way now because it is so ridiculous. And I want women, every woman out there, or men to that fact, I want everybody to know that your brain is lying to you. You are so worthy of so many things. But we tell these stories to ourselves and we hear it from outside and we start to believe it. And I really believe that my only option for love was to be in a really abusive relationship.
I think I'm gonna share something kind of personal that I actually have never shared anything like this really on this show, but I too, like you, I'm not a big person. I'm only 5'4", and I have a bigger butt, a rounder butt for sure. Like it was pointed out, like I knew from the time I was 13, people were saying stuff about it. And my grandmother, who was very prim and proper, felt like I stuck my butt out, and she would make me at her house stand against the wall and suck my, my stomach in or stand up a certain way so that my butt wouldn't stick out because I think she was embarrassed by it, which is interesting because I found out later that it's just the curve of my spine that causes that. It's not my posture. But unlike you, somehow I didn't internalize it and make it a bad thing. And actually, in my 40s, I won a butt contest and got concert tickets for it.
I
So
love
I got
it.
something out of it. But
Damn.
again, maybe a cultural difference because I
Yeah.
grew up at that age. We're pretty much in the same age. I grew up in the 80s in high school, and it wasn't necessarily a super negative thing. Where in the Scandinavian countries, where that was so much different and it was the outlier, that could have been totally different if I had been somewhere else. So it's interesting how people process different things, but also I didn't have the same contract that you had, which we're going to talk about also. So
Yeah.
do you want to share your near death experience in any way you'd like to tell it?
Sure. So I was in the relationship for quite a few years, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And he had a habit of beating me in my stomach because that doesn't leave marks. And it's really sad that I know this from a personal experience, but that also led to something else. It led me being diagnosed with stomach cancer when I was 21 years old. And of course, I thought at that time, I thought that, okay, this is my death sentence. This is what is going to kill me. And at that time, I didn't put two and two together that, okay, I am in a abusive relationship where he tends to beat me to my stomach, and the cancer, the illness, the disease is in my stomach. So that it didn't cross my mind in any way that's there's any connection with that. But then there was one morning in the winter in '93 when he came home. He had these, guys' nights out. And Finnish people drink. When they drink, they drink. We're talking drink a bottle of vodka and then go out. That kind of drinking. So it's basically blackout drunk. He comes home. I'm already in bed sleeping, and I wake up to him sitting on my legs, beating my stomach. I'm sorry. This happens every time. For some reason, it's really strong this time. Like I can feel the hands around my neck right now. So I'm just gonna take a breath and let that crap go. And so he's beating my stomach, and there's something different this time. There is this blackness in his eyes, like there's nobody there. And the last thing I remember is him strangling me and biting his teeth to my eyebrow. And that's it for me. I don't remember how I got to the hospital. I don't know how I got to the hospital. But the next thing I know is I'm standing at a back wall of a ER room, and I'm kind of looking down, not thinking anything of it. I'm kind of looking down, not directly from above down, but kind of down. And I see a monitor, like where the EKG, where the heart monitor, and it's flatlining. And I'm like, oh, until I realize that it's me. And once I realized that it is me on that bed, this sheer panic went through me. But as soon as I felt that panic, I was pulled away, emotionally pulled away. I didn't, like, my physical distance from what I was seeing didn't change, but I was emotionally pulled away. And I just knew everything's okay. It's fine. It's okay. And I started to look around, and I realized that I can see everything. I have like 360 view of everything, and I'm just filled with this incredible amount of peace and love. And it is difficult to try to explain it in the words that we have, because there isn't big enough words to tell you what it feels like. Everybody listening or watching, I'm sure you've fallen in love and you remember that first rush when you realize, oh my God, I'm in love. Multiply that by like a million, and then you're getting close to what it feels like. So it is a really, really big feeling of love. And as I'm observing this what is happening, the doctors are working on me. I realized my grandparents came next to me, and they are greeting me. Okay, they had been dead for a few years at this point, and they are greeting me, and we're hugging. And the hug, when you don't have a physical body, again, it is really truly two souls merging into one, and it hug times a million. Again, I can't find real words to explain how incredibly wonderful and beautiful it is. And it wasn't odd to me at all that they were there. It was perfectly normal, and it felt like, well, yeah, of course you're right here. You're supposed to be here because we are family. And I was so excited to see them again, and just feeling their energy being that extremely vital and live. Everything felt more real and more alive than what I feel today on being here sitting behind this camera. So while I'm talking to my grandparents, also had other people come and meet me. I know who they are, but I can't name them. It feels more like a soul connection than an actual that I would have a physical connection, and I could point out and give you a name. But I knew who they were. And my grandparents told me that I have a choice to make. I can either go with them or I can come back. And I knew immediately, I knew that I had to come back. I had to be here. Not just had to, I wanted to, because I hadn't lived yet. All the crap that I had put myself through, that was just part of the plan. That was now done. And now I had actually real plans and things that I wanted to do and experience here because it's so much fun to be here. And while I was talking to my grandparents, and again, when you're talking on the other side, you don't have a mouth, there's no physical words. And it's a feeling, but just like here in the physical, you can hear in the words the emotion behind it. That is how you communicate. And it's so much information all at once. And I also, these other people who were there, they were helping me with the secrets. They're not secrets. I don't know why there's a book called The Secret, and it's not a secret. It's we all come here with the knowing of how the universe works, how we here as human beings, how we work, and how we're moving forward, and why we are here. We just forget from the birth, because our well-meaning parents and teachers, they've learned a certain way and they teach us the certain way, and then we start to believe the lies that our brain tells us. So we just kind of forget. So I was awarded all this information, and it was like an instant download. It wasn't something that I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to take me a few hours to explain all this. Now it was an instant download. And again, there's no really physical words to explain. It just happened, and it was magnificent because I had so much to look forward to when I came back. And yeah, so I decided to come back. I was clinically dead for 20 minutes. And as soon as I came back, I sat up and I was ready to go. Of course, the doctors were like, okay, no, you need to lay down. You need to lay down. Like, your heart was just stopped for 20 minutes. You have cancer, yeah, and they are well-meaning people, doctors. And we need doctors because of how humans operate. But for me, it was an instant knowing, no, I'm good to go. I want to go home now. I have things to do. I'm okay. I'm well, both physically and emotionally. I am okay, and I gotta go.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Ula, I have so many questions for you.
I love it.
Well, one of the things I want to ask you is I know you said that you had that stomach cancer when you were 21 and this happened when you were 23. Had
Yes.
you already resolved the cancer or did you still
No.
have it at the time?
I still had the cancer, and I had been going through chemo and radiation. And when I was diagnosed at 21, I was told that I have two years to live. So of course, at that time, I was already expecting that, yeah, I'm gonna die, and I did. I just
But
didn't
not from
know that it
that.
happened differently.
So what happened with the cancer? Were you shown what was going to happen? Because I mean, obviously you said you saw that you knew that you had things to do. And
Yes,
I know that you knew that you had children to bring into this
yes.
incarnation. So what did they, if anything, show you or tell you was going to happen with the physical body and the ailments that you were suffering from?
So it was also explained to me that I had brought it all to
You
myself.
brought it all. And this is the Anita Morjani part. This is the
Yes,
self-love part. Will you
yes.
elaborate on that a little bit so that people watching can really understand what was communicated and what you gleaned from that experience?
So everything is energy, and energy attracts similar energy. That it's the birds of a feather kind of thing. And I had for so long stuffed all my insecurities, the feeling of not enough, everything in. And where do we stuff it? Down, down, down to our stomach. And then I have a boyfriend who is enhancing that energy. So all that yucky energy collected into my stomach where it formed a disease. And even the word disease, it's this ease. I wasn't allowing this ease in my life. And it was explained to me that as soon as you let go of that, and because I was on the other side, which is not really, it's not the other side, there's no side. It just is. It, I knew that while I was there, I was able to let that uneasiness in me go, because I'm looking at this thing on the bed. I was like, oh my god, she's so little. Like, how did I fit in that? I possibly can't add any other yuckiness in there. I just want to be able to get myself back and be me and be the light that I was supposed to be from the day one. I actually have been. I just didn't realize it back then.
So you have this expansive feeling of what you are on the other side, and you see your body and it's little, and you know you've got to get back into it. Did you at any time look and see what your body looked like?
Yes, I mean, I could see the entire time we're talking, I could see my body in the bed and the
I'm
doctor.
not talking about that one. I'm talking about the soul
Oh, my
side that
soul.
you were. Did you look down and
It
see what it looked like?
it was still in the human form, but
Okay.
it was like this sparkling, shining um, being. And I looked like me, but at the same time, I didn't look like me. And I knew my grandparents were my grandparents, and they looked like themselves, but at the same time, they didn't necessarily look like themselves. There was this light, this sparkle. It's, again, there's no words to describe these, because it's so much bigger than what we are and what human experience is allowing us to understand at this point. There might be a day when we are allowed, or we are evolved enough to be able to see that. But at this point, it's like I don't really have the words to to describe it better than it is just your light. You are like such a sparkling, incredible being, every single one of us. And that is like one of the biggest messages I want everybody to hear, that you are magnificent. Don't let your brain lie to you. You are magnificent.
Oh my gosh, I love that. The tagline on my YouTube channel is called Waking You Up to the Power of Your Soul. That
Oh,
is what this whole channel is about. You summed it up so beautifully. I'm so glad you're sharing this. So let's go back a little bit and let's talk a little bit about something that you mentioned that I've heard other people say this before, and that was that you you realize that you've lived through this and it's part of the plan. So, how in the world, why in the world would someone have picked an abusive relationship as part of their plan?
well, first of all, we are all here to expand the universe. We are here for the joy of it. And what we see as misery or hardship, it's part of the expansion for this universe. And when you get here, yes, you have parts of it planned, but you can also change your mind while you're here. Um, but those parts are so tiny compared to what your soul has planned to do. And there's also people who come here for an illness, for example. They are here so that we can find solutions. We are all here to find solutions. I was here to find a solution, not only for my ex-boyfriend to realize that he can't go down the path that he was going, because had I died, he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. And now he walks a free man and he hasn't drank since.
He
Um,
hasn't
he
had a
hasn't.
drink since that experience. Are you still in any contact with him, or were you in contact with him much after that?
No, no, it was like 3 months and he was out, and I haven't talked to him, but a common friend of ours, this probably like 20 years ago, when I heard that he hasn't had a drink since.
That's amazing. So who
Mhm.
knows, maybe you two contracted with each other.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And from that became that expansion. And also, not very long after I had this near death experience, domestic abuse finally became a crime in Finland. It wasn't a crime before. And that's one of the things when people ask me, why didn't you just leave and why didn't you just go to police? I'm like, well, it wasn't a crime in Finland back then. What are they going to do? He's drunk, they're going to put him in jail for a night. He comes back, he's mad that I reported him. I was kind of stuck in that situation. So that was part of the expansion on my part. I was one of the catalysts there, that this needs to be a crime. This can't be happening to women or
Well,
men.
what would you say to people then who are watching, who put in the comments, we couldn't have possibly picked our lives? Like why would we pick all of these things? What would you say to them?
But you did. But you did. We, like I said, we are here to expand not just the universe, but our own selves. We are here to feel the contrast, because without contrast, there is no expansion. You have to have contrast. So your contrasting moment is that, okay, I don't have enough money to pay bills right now. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be poor in this world. And you keep focusing on that. You keep pulling that energy in until you realize that I don't have to choose this. I get to choose different. You come here with enough contrast that you can choose differently. And in the process of choosing differently, you expand your being and you expand the entire universe. And again,
I
you
think that's so helpful. Wow. All right. You had conversations with your grandparents and they were telepathic. Do you remember much about what was exchanged between you and your grandparents?
it was mostly about me, how I had, got myself to that point. It was just lovely things like, remember when you were little, and it was that really familiar, like if you imagine a family reunion and there's people you haven't seen in a decade or even longer, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great, this is so great, and so good to see you, and we're going to keep in contact, and then you don't. But I have kept in contact with my grandparents like weekly, like
So
weekly.
do they communicate? Do you think they're your spirit guides now?
Oh, they always been, even when they were
Always
here. Yeah,
been.
yeah.
Which would make sense that they would be the ones that would show up and tell you you have to go back.
Yes,
Like,
and
our
I'm like,
job's
I'm
not done
getting chills,
yet.
and I'm like, yeah, grandma, I know you're right here.
Okay, I want to put a pin in that. I want to come back to that in a little bit because I have a couple more questions about the near-death experience, but I want to find out a little bit more about how they've been guiding you because that's super cool. And I know a lot of people are always searching for connecting with passed away loved ones, which is a big deal. But you said that they were helping you, and I don't know if it was them or somebody else, but they were helping you with the secrets of the universe, which really aren't secrets. They're just things that we need to learn. So, what can you share with us about what you understood about the purpose, the universe, the secrets that it holds, and why we're really here, other than the expansion, which you've already addressed?
Yes, and one of the things I really realized is how incredibly powerful we are, and how incredibly connected we are, and we are all of the life source, whether you call it God or Om or Buddha, whatever you want to call this um, life source. We are all part of it. And you cannot be disconnected ever. You can try your best, and a lot of us do, to cut off that connection and that support and love that is always available to you. But you cannot completely cut it off, ever, ever. And another thing is that you are forever, forever. Infinite. There is no end to you, ever. And that is something that I know many people struggle with. Like, okay, then what? Then where am I gonna be? Or my loved one is ready to transition. Where are they gonna be? I will never see them again. I never feel them again. And they are always, always right there, and they are supporting you. But again, we tend to cut off that connection. And yeah, the biggest message I got is that life is supposed to be fun. And
Life is supposed to be fun. So, did you get that message and come back and change some things to make your life more fun?
oh yes, oh yes, and it is absolutely magnificent to see it in my children now, because like their childhood, and my oldest one will be 20 this fall, to see him graduate high school when I was in the situation that I was in versus him. Oh my gosh, I was just like, yes, like that's it, yeah, go do that and be that. And I love seeing that in him, that how he is living it. And there's not even the slightest poor me thing in me, like comparing myself to him. It was just like, I changed this. I made a generational change.
Yes, you did. How
Yes,
powerful is that?
right. And we're really here to play. And we forget that. Unfortunately, we forget that from basically from birth, because when you're born, you're being measured and weighed and compared to other children who were just born. Let's make sure that you stay on the line. And we start to forget that connection like almost immediately. But I love that I've met a lot of people who don't necessarily haven't had a near-death experience, but they have learned the connection through other media. And it's just so wonderful that there's more and more people who understand that we have this connection and we can never be disconnected from the source. And we are here to play and we are here to support each other. And in that, we just make the universe bigger and better.
Well, speaking of making the universe bigger and better, you came back and you knew that you had a job to do, which included raising your children. And it sounds like you've done that well. But I'm always curious because, without exception, people who have been on the other side come back changed. And they usually have some kind of an ability that they didn't have before. So, what was different that way for you?
Well, first it was frustrating. It's I like to say that it is like trying to solve the universe in a shoebox to come back to this itty bitty body. Everything feels so big. All your emotions are giant. And I was so much connected to my source that I could feel other people around me. Like my neighbor was fighting with her boyfriend. I could feel the anger in me, physically feel the anger. And I'm like, this is not mine. This is not mine. I don't want it. Or, at the grocery store, um person yelling at the boss boy, and I'm like, oh, no, 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 I don't, this is not mine, this is not mine. So being able to regulate that took some time, but I never let that connection falter down what it you like how little I had connection before my near-death experience. So I am extremely connected with my spirit guides, my dearly departed. I like to call them dead people because, again, I want to make fun of it. They are more alive than we are, so it's just funny to say that they're dead people.
So
And
that's the main reason, or those are the main things that you've experienced differently.
yes,
Okay, you also, I know, didn't share this publicly for 30 years, so I am curious, how and who did you choose to share this with before you went public with it, and what was their reaction?
so I didn't share this because, again, I was in Finland and the Finnish culture is pretty stoic, and my mom very much discouraged me to share from sharing, and anybody that I even mentioned, like, oh, no, 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 you don't want to talk about that, nobody wants to hear that. So I didn't. I was like, okay, nobody wants to hear this, I'll just live my life and be happy. And then I shared it with my best friend here in the United States, and she is a clinical psychologist, and she was like, oh my gosh, you have to share this. I was like, I do, why?
So what do you think your purpose in sharing it is? What does it do?
Well, it helps people. I understand that. Like I always knew that my story helps people, and I have been doing that without telling the story, just by being a light in people's lives. And I can lift you up energetically without you knowing it. You just feel better when you walk away from me. That's
How do you do it? That's so cool.
it all starts within you, and we all can do this. We are all capable of this, but you have to put yourself first. You have to be very, very, very centered and comfortable within you, and know that you are connected to the source all of the time. And source is nothing but love, just pure love. And when you know that you are part of that, it means that you are pure love. And when you are pure love, it radiates out.
It definitely does. So for people who have probably are never going to have a near-death experience, can you share some gold nuggets that you have learned over this amount of time that you've processed this, that they could actually take and maybe use to implement in their lives? I don't care if it's about having more fun, if it's just, whatever you want to share, what do you think is really important for people to understand?
Well, one thing that I want people to understand is that you are in charge. It's so easy to feel like there's these outside forces playing against you. And unfortunately, it is always you, your energy, what you are attracting to yourself. It starts with you, nobody else. And it is really easy to blame other people. It's easy to hate other people. And like I've said a couple of times, it's your brain lying to you. You are love. You are pure love. And maybe just for one day, what if you know nothing? What if that person that's irritating the crap out of you, what if you just don't know? Let them be. What if that work that you're not happy with for one day, what if you just you know nothing? It could turn into something magnificent. You don't know. Simple I know nothing can lift your energy from a place of misery. And also people tend to think that, okay, I feel really angry or miserable or sad or depressed right now, and my goal is to feel joy, and the gap is so big I don't know how to get there, so I'm just forcing myself to get there, and I'm going to do everything I can physically and mentally to get there, and then you start beating yourself up because you can't get there. Just slight little change. If you are depressed, anger feels better. If you're angry, sadness feels better. Take more small little steps. Give yourself grace, because nobody else is going to do that, unfortunately. And even if they do, that doesn't last unless you make the change in you. And you can do it. I know you can, because I could. So
So powerful. Wow. This has been such a great conversation. I would imagine that people that are watching are going to want to connect with you in some way, shape, or form. So, are you open to that?
yes,
And
yes.
in what way can people connect with you?
So you can find me on Substack. My
On
name
what? And what is it
on
called?
Substack. I'm actually in the process of writing my memoir.
Okay.
And Substack is kind of like social media for writers.
Oh, I've never heard of it before.
You have to check it out. There's some really, really great authors in there, sharing articles and writing blogs and things. So it's a lovely place to be. So on Substack, if you search my name, Ulla Gaudin, you'll find me and you can connect with me there.
Okay, well, I'll put that information down in the contact so that people can find it there. Ula, this has been so much fun. I love, like I said, I love your energy because you exude the fun that you're talking about. And I feel like you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
Mhm.
And I want to thank you for what you are doing by sharing your story, because I know it takes a lot to be vulnerable and share these stories, but you are helping to wake up the collective consciousness, and it is so needed right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.